After a while, he emerged and informed his mother that he thought it over, and then he said a prayer. "Fine," said his mother. "If you ask God to help you not to misbehave, He will help you." "Oh, I didn't ask Him to help me not misbehave, Mom," said Johnny. "I asked Him to help you put up with me." I imagine Johnny was sent back to his room until he learned to pray right. But in any case, I think God needs to send us back to our room sometimes, not praying right, not praying at all. And a lot of this has to do with that we don't understand how valuable our time is, how valuable our life is. The sanctity of life. Today's reading from Luke 18 said, "Then it happened as he was coming near to Jericho that a certain blind man sat by the road begging. And hearing a multitude passing by, he asked what it meant. So they told him, 'Jesus of Nazareth is passing by.' And he cried out, saying, 'Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me.' Then those who went before warned him that he should be quiet. But he cried out all the more, 'Son of David, have mercy on me.' So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be brought to him." So, a number of things jumped out at me when preparing for today's reading. But one of them is that the man wouldn't be silenced. He wouldn't be silenced. And he repeated, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And by the way, I love our evangelical brethren, but for those who don't like litanies or who, say that vain repetition, Jesus doesn't scold him for this vain repetition. "Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy," does he? He rewards it. Then those who went before him said that he should be quiet. So they told him to be quiet. They told him to shut up. Be quiet. The Lord doesn't want to be bothered by you. This is the Son of God. Go away. You're bothering him. Which is amazing that they didn't think they were bothering him, seeking his attention and following him everywhere. Right? But in any case, it shows you how self-centered people can be. But all the more he cried out, "Son of David, have mercy on me," repeatedly. So did Jesus go over to him? No. In fact, it's very clear. So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be brought to him. And that is our calling as Christians, to bring others to Christ. Let's let Jesus stand still and us bring others and ourselves to him. This passage reminds me of another one that we will hear on Wednesday. And there's another instance in Scripture where they tell others to shut up and go away and not bother the Lord. Matthew 18, "At that time the disciples came unto Jesus, saying, 'Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?' And Jesus called a little child unto him and sat him in the middle of them. And said, 'Verily I say unto you, except you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as a little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever will receive such a little child in my name receives me. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones,'" he's not saying offend in the sense we use in modern English, hurt their feelings. He's saying sin against. "Whosoever will sin against one of these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for him that a millstone were hung around his neck and that he would drown in the depths of the sea. Woe unto the world because of offenses." Offenses, man against another man, human against another human. "For it must be needs that offenses come, but woe unto the person by whom the offense comes. Wherefore, if your hand or foot offend you, cut them off and cast them from thee. It is better for you to enter into life halt or maimed, rather than to have 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire." Speaking, of course, metaphorically. If thine eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. In other words, if we're looking at things that are causing us to sin, for instance, things on here, or things on our computer screen, or things at, say, one of the joints on Northdale Mabry there. I'm not going to mention which ones, or things of this nature. Pluck it out, right? And cast it from you. It's better for you, pluck it out of your life. It's better for you to enter into life with one eye, rather than to have two eyes to be cast into hellfire. Take heed that you despise not one of these little ones, for I say unto you that in heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father which is in heaven. For the Son of Man is come to save that which is lost. Even so, it is not the will of your Father which is in heaven that even one of these little ones should perish. Today we approach the anniversary of the decision by the United States Supreme Court on January 22nd, 1973 to legalize abortion. This week our own Archbishop Daniel will be marching with the Orthodox Christians for Life in the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. with thousands of others, including bishops and priests. And we will be praying about it here ourselves. At 9:30 on Wednesday, it's not in your bulletins, but at 9:30 on Wednesday we will be having a supplicatory service here for that very purpose. In the back page of the newspapers over the past few years, you may have noticed that a massive amount of abortion doctors and nurses have left the abortion industry for good. The reason they can no longer lie and convince themselves and others that it's not a human child. Many people try to class this as a political topic. Oh no, it's very religious. In fact, we can hardly call it political. In 1960, both parties were pro-life. But now, even more recently than that, both parties were neck and neck on the topic of pro-life. Through the 70s, I just looked at the graph. It's amazing. The Republican and Democratic parties were both, on the issue about hanging around between 18 and 21%. It wasn't until we get into the mid-'80s that all of a sudden one party pulls ahead of the other as a pro-life party. But traditionally, both of them were always pro-life, in the sense of defending human life in the womb. And even more recently, it was to be legal but rare. Does anyone know when that ended, by the way, in the Democratic Party? 2012. It's that recent. 2012 that switched. And it can be regained. Every party in this country should be pro-life. Every single party. And we need to pressure both of them to, one, to move back to being pro-life and the other to stay. We don't serve the politicians. The politicians serve us. You say, "Oh, Father, it's a one issue thing, with voting, it's one issue." It's not one issue. It's three issues. It's three issues that are stated in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The baby's deprived of life. The baby doesn't have the liberty to live. It definitely doesn't have a chance at the pursuit of happiness because of unjust laws made by us in 1973. Unjust interpretations by the Supreme Court, more specifically, but frankly tolerated by our country. So, in any case, as a professor and a person who studied these things deeply, I can tell you that abortion has been an issue for thousands of years. It's not a new issue, but it's one that we actually confirm was told us in the early church 1,600 years ago. St. Basil testified that many women were having abortions. And he said it's still a human life, whether perfectly formed or not. Way back then, the argument was, Down syndrome children, you can tell the baby's misformed, all this other stuff. Let's abort it. It was going on back then. and it was legal in many, many places. It was the Church of Christ which stood against it. Recently the website, the Babylon Bee, it's a satire site, but one of its headlines said, "More unborn babies disguising themselves as Baby Yoda said their liberal parents won't abort them." The thing is, what is very sad is it might be true that some people are less likely to abort their baby if it looked like Baby Yoda. Dave Chappelle, the comedian, and I don't necessarily recommend you seeing his whole latest comedy routine, but he got under fire for surprising the audience, let's say. He says, "I don't care," he makes jokes, "I don't care what your religious beliefs are or anything, but if you're a man, you need to be quiet on the issue of abortion. Seriously. This is theirs. The right to choose is their unequivocal right. Not only do I believe that they have the right to choose, I believe that they shouldn't have to consult anybody except for a physician about how they exercise that right. And gentlemen, that is fair. And ladies, to be fair to us, I also believe," he continues, "I also believe that if you decide to have the baby, a man should not have to pay. That's fair." And then he pauses and says, "Hey, if you can kill this baby, I at least can abandon it." And ouch, like a boo came across the audience, right? "It's my money, my choice, and if I'm wrong, then perhaps we're both wrong," he said as he closed out this thing. So figure that one out for yourselves. Our logic on the issue of life has become warped, and we need to turn back. If that most fundamental right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness does not belong to the human in the womb, which it's absolutely human, don't tell me it's not human, has a DNA right from the moment of conception. That DNA starts moving and turning, and guess what kind of DNA it is? It's not monkey DNA. It's not a little dolphin swimming around in there. It's a human. But some say, the March for Life, why these public displays? They do no good. That's not true. And in fact, in one of the readings from St. Luke, at that time Jesus told them a parable to the effect that they ought always to pray and not to lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor regarded man. This applies to some of our Supreme Court, certainly, and the greater court systems. And there was a widow in the city who kept coming to him and saying, "Vindicate me against my adversary." For a while the judge refused, but afterwards, as she kept bothering him, he said to himself, "Though I neither fear God nor regard man, yet because this widow continues to bother me, I will vindicate her, or else she will wear me out by her continual pleadings." Let's wear this government out by our continual pleadings for their injustice towards humanity at its earliest stage. And we all, and everyone else knows that it's true, that if we bug people enough to do the right thing, and this includes even unrighteous politicians and judges enough to do the right thing, they will do it. And the Lord said, to close this out, the Lord said, "Hear what the unrighteous judge says. And will not God vindicate his elect who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over him? I tell you, he will vindicate them speedily." That is why so many abortionists are turning away from the abortion industry and unto God. Because they, as we see from their interviews, they became aware of impending judgment. The Lord finishes, "Nevertheless, when the Son of Man returns," this is this very same passage, "when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith upon the earth?" Let us commit ourselves to this very thing. Let us be like the blind man in today's reading who, when they told him to shut up, when crying out unto the Lord, he did not listen, but he continued to cry unto the Lord. But was wont to draw near to him. Let us today strongly vow to remain steadfast in the faith that has been entrusted to us, that indeed the commandment, you shall not murder, shall be at the forefront of our energy to defend life from conception to death in every human person. Lord, grant us the grace to desire it and to do it. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.